Well, I first came to Japan to work with the company here in 2005, so that's 8 years that I've been here. And I think not only has my impression of Japanese ballet grown considerably in that time, not only because of my work here, but because of ballet that I've seen around Tokyo. And I also think that perhaps maybe the company has changed a bit as well because of my work with it. I certainly think the company is a little bit stronger now because of the repertoire that I've given it and challenged it with. I think they're more versatile. They're more used to working in a sort of neoclassical style. And also I think the company technically is very strong now. I'm not sure whether it's stronger since I came. That would not be for me to say, but it certainly dances in a way in which I understand it more. I've been here now for 3 years directing the company, and next year is my last year. I've been fortunate in that I've had a pretty free hand in my choosing of the repertoire. I think that the last year is a particularly exciting one. It embodies many of the things that I have a great belief in: new work, 20th century historic dance, as well as the classics. And I'm pleased that my year will finish with, I suppose, two works which have been very important for me in my history with the company. Firstly, Carmina, which is where my story with the National Ballet of Japan began, and then finally with my production of The Prince of the Pagodas, which I suppose was a kind of a high watermark for me creatively with the company. So I think the fourth year is an exciting year artistically and challenging for the company. Knowing that next season was going to be my last season, I was determined that it should reflect the things that I believe in, the things I think are important, and the things that I think the company needs, that the company needs and the audience here needs to go forwards when I'm not here. And so it includes works which are of historical importance, works which are musically important, because that's another thing that I've been very determined to do while I've been here, is to kind of challenge the audiences musically as well as choreographically. It has a new piece by a young American choreographer whose work I'm familiar with. I think that's important. I haven't had the opportunity to bring other choreographers here, but with Jessica Lang coming next year, that's a nice step forward. We also have 2 triple bills in the program, and as I've often said before, it's important that we have shorter works in the repertoire as well as the big works. And of course, as I've said before, we finish with 2 works of my own, which I think are particularly important to me and the company collectively. And we also have the classics. We also have Swan Lake and the Nutcracker. I felt that the company here, and perhaps companies in Japan as a whole, have almost bypassed the Diaghilev period. And there's too great an emphasis on the 19th century works. Of course, the Diaghilev Ballet Russe, the Russian ballet, came out of a rejection of that 19th century work. That 19th century work, Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, it was almost a decadent, dead thing by the time the 21st century came along. And it was the Ballet Russe which came out of Russia and rejected that work, and in doing so made a renaissance of all theatre and music arts. This was a company which existed for 20 years, 1909 to 1929. Musically, it commissioned work by Stravinsky, Strauss, Debussy, everybody who was anybody in 20th century music wrote music for Diaghilev. Scenery was designed by the greatest artists of the day, not just Bakst and Benoit, great theatre designers, but Picasso, Derain, Matisse, Dali, Miro, everybody who was anybody designed for Diaghilev. The dancers, Pavlova, Karsavina, Nijinsky, Nijinska, Lifa, again, everybody danced for the Ballet Russe. Choreographers, Fokin, Massin, Balentine, Nijinsky, Nijinska, everybody choreographed for Diaghilev. This was the most important period in art history, possibly ever, in that 20 years. And it came through ballet, not through opera, not through music, not through theatre, not through art, but ballet. That's why the Diaghilev period is so important. This program, which has, these three seminal works of the 20th century, from Fokin's Firebird, the exotic Russia, the exotic fairy tale Russia, to Nijinska's Les Noces, one of the most austere, most ritualized ballets ever written. A great, great masterpiece of the 20th century. And then Balentine's Apollo, this late work for just a handful of dancers, which embodied everything that Balentine was going to do over the next 60 years. And Balentine went from this ballet to America and founded American ballet, virtually. So it's a tremendously important program. Each piece is an absolute masterpiece. Each one is entirely different. And the one thing they all three have in common, Stravinsky, the greatest ballet composer ever, and one of the greatest composers of the 20th century. So it's a good program. I'm very excited about the program of work that we have planned for next year. It reflects a great many of my beliefs in existing work, in important 20th century work, in new work, and above all, entertaining the audience, because it's my very, very strong belief that that's basically what we're here to do. We are to entertain you. So I hope that you will come along, that you'll see the diverse number of programs that I've prepared for the company and for you next year. And I hope it's going to be a wonderful year. I will be very sad at the end of that year to leave, but I'm sure that the company will go from strength to strength, even without me.